Okay, everyone. Hi, it's Matt Young, and this is a Chunder chat with one of our storytellers from the Story Chunder, and that is Mr. Shad Wicka, who I'm going to see if he can come online, and we're going to have a little bit of a chat. And the construction just started outside my house, which is awesome. Hey, Shad, how you going, man?
Yeah, good man. You?
Yeah, I'm all right. Surviving the COVID
Apostle?
lockdown and all that sort of craziness.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Have you got back to the pub yet, or is drinking still from
Uh,
home?
I went yesterday actually. It's weird, man. It's kind of like I went on a Sunday to watch the footy, and it is a weird experience being in
Yeah.
like you got to stay in your little section, and then it's like they give you drink service as well, which is that's like how they do it in the States though, which I was kind of like you don't really go out to the bar that much in the States when you go to some places,
Yeah, that's
but
true. That's true.
the vibe's just not there, man.
Yeah, no, I know. I had a drink with a friend on Friday, and it was sort of like, yeah, maybe let's just keep drinking from home for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So this is the Chunder Chats, which is part of the Chunder Chat, which is part of the Story Chunder. And of course, you were on the Story Chunder and told an amazing story about getting fired from a job,
Yeah.
which I had to look up the article and I had to show my son the picture. I was like, take a look at this. He's like, I don't understand. I was like, look at the mug. He was like, I still don't understand. So I had to spell
Yeah.
it out for him. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. um, but first of all, just give us a little bit. Tell us a bit about yourself, Shad. Who are you? Where are you from? What makes you you?
Um, oh man, I guess I mean where I'm from, like originally, I guess is like I was born overseas. I was born in Tonga. Um,
Really?
yeah. I was born in the Vanuatu Islands in Tonga. Came to Australia when I was like real young. I think I was only like 2 or 3 years old or something. Um, and we kind of lived in like North Queensland for a bit, and then when I was in preschool, I kind of grew up on the Central Coast, New South Wales,
Mm.
for like a fair few years. I've moved around a lot, so I kind of lived in regional towns for a bit, all that kind of jazz. But for the last 10 years, shit, yeah, it's about that long. Um, I've been in like Darwin, Cairns, and then I came to Brisbane a bit over a year ago after the whole sacking scenario.
Which is part of
Yeah,
your story, which everyone will hear when I make this into a podcast at the end of the podcast. Um, I lived in Fiji for 6 years. I just moved back here recently.
yeah, right.
And I mean, I've been to Tonga once when I worked on the cruise ship, but lots of Tongan friends. So I didn't know that you were born there. So that's exciting.
Yeah, well, I was born there, but my dad's Pakistani and my
Hmm.
mum is like European Australian, and she grew up there as a kid because my grandparents moved over there. Well, I wouldn't even know when, probably like 60s or 70s or something. And they essentially started tourism over there. They
Hmm.
became like friends with the royal family and had their own crazy adventures over there. So my mum grew up there. So when it was time for me to be born, she kind of went back. I've only been back once. I went back once
Yeah.
when I was 16. And I tell you what, it's a lot different to Fiji. Like it is not a resort island group. I'll tell you that. I had a shower. I was there for 2 weeks, and the shower was a sawn off piece of plumbing pipe sticking out of the wall, and it had only one temperature, which was cold. So it's
That sounds about right.
cool
I
for me.
also did a film called The Other Side of Heaven too, which was set in Tonga, about Mormon missionaries in Tonga. And
Oh
I
yeah,
actually met, was she the princess or the queen of Tonga? Because she was actually in the film. Anyway, it was kind of crazy. But back to you. So tell us a bit more about you as a storyteller, or whatever that means to you, because I know you've been on radio and you've got a couple of other things in your bow. Comedian,
um,
perhaps.
yeah. Well, I've been doing radio for ages, so I guess like that'd probably be the main part of my like storytelling. I started doing like community radio when I was like like 16, I think I was originally. And so it's like storytelling's always been a part of doing radio. And then obviously I do stand up. And I've been doing that for a few years now. And I reckon comedians are the best storytellers around. No offense to all the other people that you have on the podcast, but I don't know. I think comics are just, there's something different about the way they're wired. The way they tell stories is just unreal, you know? And they've always like just been able to see I think it was, what was Mel Buttle said something about like, oh, I can't remember the quote, but just like being able to see like the interesting stuff in the most, I guess, like run-of-the-mill parts of life. So, yeah, I don't know. I like telling stories. I talk heaps. I talk too much. So might as well have something to come out of the mouth if I'm going to keep gabbing on. So.
Well, you know, the Story Chunder was inspired by my friend John Flynn, who has something called Oh Hey Guys at Upright Citizens Brigade in LA, which is a comedy sort of school. And he teaches storytelling sort of for comedy, basically. And so when I started the Story Chunder, it was sort of with that improv sort of comedy sort of feel. But I also wanted to give, you know, other people from other areas of performance to have an opportunity to experience storytelling, I guess, you know what I mean? And like, I've always hoped that it would be sort of, you know, something light and funny and something entertaining, but you know, at times it's veered into other areas over the past few weeks, as you could imagine. But
man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. What I love about like the unbelievable true stories, like in the Story Chunder, or like I think you have a podcast, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is just like how things that can seem so normal and mundane to us as humans, like, seem absolutely outrageous to other people, right?
Yeah.
Like when I go to LA, I always tell stories about living in Fiji, because even the thing that you just said about the sawed off, you know, pipe or whatever is the shower. People are like, what? I'm like,
Yeah.
That's normal. I was like, of course. Like, yeah, I survived a category 4 cyclone, whatever. Survived. I'm being dramatic. I mean, it was like we were in the pink zone. We only lost a few trees. Our house didn't fall apart. But you know what I'm saying? Like people are always like, wow, that's crazy. And I'm like, well, no, it's not. It's kind of like, you know, it's my experience, and it's like thousands of people's experience, I suppose. You know what I mean? It's just nice to sort of hear people's stories, because then you sort of find out that maybe you have something in common, you know?
I've always just kind of, I don't know, I like always admire people that have the wild stories, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's just, me and my mates used to have this stupid analogy about the whole idea of like, what, you know how people say, oh, what do you bring into the table? You heard of that phrase before? Yeah, so like, my mates used to always make this like joke about they'd hate for people to turn up and all they're bringing to the table is bread. And that's like a metaphor for what kind of conversation someone's going to be bringing to the night or the situation. And I think there's nothing worse in this world than being a bit boring. So I admire people that have a fascinating story to tell, and the people that, like, I got mates that just make decisions in their life that are just purely based on where's this pathway going to go. You know what I mean? Like, they'll do a job purely because they think there's going to be something interesting on the end of it. They'll say yes to an event because they're like, this is going to be weird and I'm just going to be a fish out of water. And I love that about a lot of my mates. And I try to kind of, I guess, adapt that to my own life. Pretty hard during a bloody lockdown, though, because there's not much you can do except to go for a Kentucky tour through your own house. So can't wait for things to just be fully open and we can go places again.
Yeah, well, you can be pretty mischievous online, though, I suppose, if you choose.
Yeah, but no. The comment section in this world right now is so depressing. No thanks. I used to be able to laugh at the weirdos that would comment on news.com.au articles, but now it's too sad.
Yeah, no, it's been a remarkably unbelievable time over the past few weeks. Yeah, because I don't know if you know that my family is still in, like, my husband and my eldest son are in Fiji, and of course, you know, with Queensland not open, like, we've been separated for a long time.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, and you sort of just kind of go, like, again, but like for me that's normal, so I'm like, you know, it's like, meh, you know, that's what it is. But other people are like, wow, that's a long time. I'm like, yeah, well, it is, but you know, it is what it is, I guess.
That's true. That is true. But that's the whole thing with, like, yeah, like going back to the storytelling, it's like that's the whole way everyone gets like a scope of the world. You know what I mean? Like sharing each other's experiences is what makes you all of a sudden change, even if you don't even know. You hear more and more stories about, the way, like in your situation, like living away from family, or people have lived overseas or maybe born overseas. It's just like slowly hearing more of those stories makes you understand people from that like human experience more,
Yeah, totally. Now, you told a very interesting story on the Story Chunder when you were on. Do you remember what day it was? I don't even remember the date.
No, I can't remember the day. But it was early lockdown, I think it was. I think it was early lockdown because I've been like, I refuse to do a Zoom stand-up gig. Not that I've been like harassed to do or anything, but I've been seeing them pop up and I'm like, there's no way I need a digital gig. But you asked about doing a story. I was like, I can do that. That's like doing radio and stuff. I can tell a story. That's fine. But so I know it was early lockdown. So I was like, I'll tell you the best story that I've got, which is how I got myself sacked January last year.
That's right. I think surprise was the theme that week. So so I'm gonna play that story. Like when I turn this into a podcast, I'm gonna play that story at the end.
Okay.
But for people that didn't tune in that week, do you want to just give us the gist of what you talked about in your story?
Yeah. So basically, January last year, I got myself worked really hard, got myself a pretty sweet promotion in radio. And it was my final week in my job before I moved to go and do the new gig. And I made a pretty silly joke in the spur of the moment involving the Prime Minister, a mug, and Instagram. So, yeah, it was kind of the story of what happened and then the couple of days after that event that got more and more ridiculous.
Now, okay, so were you holding the mug? Like, was this a conscious decision with the mug, or was this just sort of a coincidence?
Well, I mean,
or can you not say because of legal reasons?
No, I can say, man. You know what? I honestly think that story, like when people hear it, like I feel like that story has haunted me longer than it should have. I reckon it's stopping me from getting work at the moment, but we'll see. I mean, I got a job in radio like 2 days later, but it wasn't. It was dressed up like in the news stories and that, like it was some kind of planned thing, but it wasn't. It was the whole situation was. The mug, the item in question, without giving too much away, but the item in question belonged to the radio station, not me, and it was used by so many different people each day. I just had the realization in the middle of a media moment to use it in its comedic value. I'm trying to dance around without telling the entire story.
Yeah, well, you're going to have to, exactly. So if you're watching, this is going to become a podcast and you're going to have to wait, see what that story is. I don't know if actually, I'm trying to think of if you're on our IGTV. I think you're on our IGTV, so I think people can go look at the story on our IGTV, but I'm not sure.
I'll say, it's funny, like in hindsight, it's funny. And I think the reason I tell the story because it's funny. It was the premise for my stand-up show that I did like down in Adelaide and then was going to do elsewhere until all the gigs stopped. But I think the reason I enjoyed telling it last year, doing gigs in Brisbane and moving here in the Gold Coast, that was it was such a shitty time. Like it was, without a doubt, one of the worst few months, in like the last decade by far. Like I'd worked really hard to get where I was in radio, so to blow it with a bit of with a silly decision, but then also having it blow up so massively as well, kind of, it was a rough time. And I think, like I said, I think that it's like the aftershock of it's probably still going to affect my career for probably, if I get back into, I mean, I'm working radio at the moment, but if I get back into that kind of level of, radio, if it's possible, Like, I think that story will always be something that'll hang around with me. So instead of, I got to a point after a few months of being very bummed out. And I like had a partner who packed up all her life as well. And after being really bummed out and dragging myself to Adelaide to do shows a few weeks later and moved to Brisbane, I kind of had a point where I was like, you know what, you can sit here and be bummed out about it and keep being like, oh, if only I did this, rah, rah, or you can, you know, look at it, laugh at the stupid moment in your life, just like my mates do when they find those funny moments, and own it, man. No one wants to sit here and be like, oh, it wasn't my fault, blah, blah, blah. It's like, mate, you do the crime, you do the time. I got fired because I made a joke and I went a bit too far with it. So, you know, deal with it, move on, and make a joke out of it.
Yeah. And in case anyone's watching from overseas or listening from overseas, the word in question that was printed on the mug, I don't really know how to explain it from an Australian context, but anyway.
It's the worst word you can say in the US.
Yeah, it's not, yes. It's probably not acceptable anywhere, but Australians tend to use it sometimes.
No, in the country towns, it gets used pretty flagrantly. It's an endearing word to many people.
Well, we live and learn, Shad, because something that I've been sort of hiding recently is that I actually played Captain Cook for the ABC in Australia. Mm-hmm. So I kind of have been advertising that lately because it's not the right time to discuss that. And I'm trying to work out, you know, how to not remove that from my history. I can't do that, but you know what I mean? But like how to deal with that at the moment.
Man, like it's a crazy kind of learning curve for a lot of people right now. You know what, like you speak of Captain Cook, like when that incident happened, Scott Morrison was in Cairns on the radio show I was a part of, announcing like, I think it was like $250,000 to fund the Cooktown celebrations that happen, I think Australia Day, where they reenact Captain Cook landing.
Yes, I've seen it. We filmed up there, and I met some of those people that
like
do that.
It's a baffling event when you think about it, and like and they'll keep doing it. They'll keep doing it every year. But the whole, I don't know, like what you're saying about trying to hide the fact that you played the character. Like it's still a figure in history. Like it's still something that needs to be portrayed in all sorts of different ways. It's like there's an element of, I don't know, I was hearing some people talk about it on a podcast today about like how all those shows are getting cancelled at the moment, like on Netflix and stuff, and Chris Lilly's stuff, which is very on the nose. And if you remember when a lot of that stuff came out, it was very on the nose. But there's a part of me that's kind of like, you can't delete everything. You know what I mean? Like, if you just delete everything, then you don't, the whole idea where they say that you got to learn from the past in order to like move forward and always think of the things you did in the past in order to make sure you're making the right decisions in the next. Man, the whole aim of the game is to be looked back upon, like the idea of progressiveness, isn't it that my kids and my grandkids are supposed to look at me and be like, I was not progressive enough? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? So if like we delete all the dumb shit that we did during that time, isn't that going to stop other people from being like, oh, that's what we did wrong, let's not bloody do that again? I don't know. That's just a thought bubble. Yeah.
Man, we're getting deep. So is there any so in terms of your story and the follow-up, and you know, you said that you're still concerned about the work aspect. I mean, is there any follow-up to that story? Like, are you back in work in radio, or what's happening now?
Well, yeah, I got hired. The thing is, like, the incident was not a reflection on how good I was at the job, you know. So that kind of mindset was held by many people, and I didn't do. As soon as the thing happened, I made a decision not to like do any media or all those kind of like project ringing and all those kind of people being like, let's talk about how you got sacked. And I was like, no, I'm not doing any of that. And I had like family and I got a little brother that's got autism and stuff that I had to explain to his friends at school while his brother's not coming to work at the radio station anymore. So I was kind of like, I'm not going to go and jump on the telly and be some kind of, I don't know, spur of the moment, got his 5 seconds of fame thing. And because I did that as well, I was like, I want to work again. I don't want to be the enemy of the station. And what they did was well within their, rights to do so. So my actions in doing that meant that I got a job pretty much 3 days later with Nova here in Brisbane, who were like, hey, we know that we can use your skills, so come and work for us and rebuild. So I was lucky enough to get that and get a lot of support from a lot of the announcers there and the staff there, because they've got everyone in the any kind of business has made a mistake. So yeah, that was really cool, and it was going really well for the last year and a bit. I've been doing great. I've been on breakfast radio here in Brisbane a bit, and the team there, Ash Kiblutzi and Sue's been heaps supportive in that as well. But at the moment with the COVID stuff, work's kind of slow, for most people.
And which has led you to, or I don't know, has it led you to start your podcast, or is the podcast always going to be happening?
The podcast was like,
I'm going to do a new podcast.
The podcast was like, I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. I was umming and ahhing. It was actually a live show that we tried, we were kind of thinking of doing a while back, back when I was in Cairns, because I ran comedy shows up there. And it was, funnily enough, a mate that I run.
Did you do a live show of it or no?
No, so it was my mate Richo's kind of brainchild, and then I've kind of now rejigged it to be a podcast because there's no live gigs. So I'm ever since this past year, I've kind of annoyingly developed a little bit of a questioning of my kind of I guess it'd be a little bit of lack of confidence in just going for things. Usually I'd have an idea and go, screw it, I'll go and do it, make it. Yeah. And if people like it, they like it. And if they don't, who cares? I'll go and make a new idea. You know what I mean? Whereas now I'm a little bit more a bit hesitant to kind of jump in. So I kind of got the push from some of the guys at Good Chat and that to just kind of do it. So Good Yarns is the podcast. It's very similar to yours. It's a storytelling podcast. And yeah, it's just I get a guest in, and it's a bit more of a back and forth of the stories. A bit more long form. And yeah, it's just started. We had Chris Martin, very funny Brisbane comic, in that just had a story about a house party that just goes nuts. Taylor Edwards, who's been on this before, I'm pretty sure. She's on this week. And actually, you know what? It's been quite exciting because I only just got told this today. There is going to be a live version of it in July. So there'll be some gigs. If you follow Good Chat Comedy in Brisbane, then you'll keep an eye out on something that's going to be happening in July.
That's up here in Brisbane, or?
Yeah, here in Brisbane. So Good Chat run one of the comedy rooms here, and they've got some pretty cool stuff that's going to be announced, I think, this week. I hope I haven't jumped the gun, but something's happening.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, we're looking at going back live in July as well with Backdoor Cards, which is because our thing started as a live event as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
I'm sorry.
It's so funny because, like I said, I've been going to these sorts of things all the time, and I'm from Boston and Massachusetts, and there's something called Stories from the Stage, which is a very popular television show, which is on every week, which is again a similar thing. I don't know how many storytellers they have. I think they have 4 every episode. And you may have heard of The Moth in the States as well.
I love them. Yeah.
And my friend John, who started Oh Hey Guys, he actually won the Moth in New York, telling a story about the first time he was, accidentally a prostitute, I suppose.
Well, that's the story I want to hear. What, did he hook up with someone and then they left him money? Or
no, I mean, he knew he was going to be. But it was sort of what you were saying earlier about people that are just sort of okay, well, let's just see how far I can go with this before it gets a little bit too far. And it got a little bit too far. And he only did it once. But it's a really good story. And
awesome.
The details of it are insane. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, the personalities involved and the other, yes. Yeah. So, no, but I think it's great. And I think it's so funny. And I think also because I'm an actor, as you know, and something that's really changed in scope of acting is that people are really looking for authenticity a lot more than they used to do. And that's a combination of a lot of things. It has to do with just the state of the world, but also with what we're consuming, you know, on Netflix and all that sort of stuff. So there's this long form storytelling, which means that you have to be a bit more present in the moment. It's not as, it's not as, you know, sort of like, you know, what the end of the season is going to be when it begins.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And I mean, that's something that I'm fascinated with. And that's what I love about the Story Chunder as well, is people kind of come on and they start to tell the story. And sometimes they know where it's going. I mean, I encourage people to know sort of where it's going. But I encourage people to know where they're going to start and where they're going to end. And then what happens in between is the exciting bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the journey. That's like when I was saying with the like good storytellers, which is probably why like I lean towards comics, and also because I perform with a lot of them, is like the ability to kind of bury the lead a little bit, you know, like hide the juicy bit a little bit, bring it up a little bit later. Don't just start at the beginning, you know. Imagine if the Fifth Sense started with him going, "Yeah, so I see dead people."
Yes, exactly.
and you're one of them, and then that's it. That's how it begins.
Yeah. And, you know, and I really, I'm super interested because, you know, I keep my stories, I ask the storytellers to keep it to 8 minutes. And again, like in terms of like I have this fantasy that these stories are all going to be turned into like short movies or, you know, some sort of an episodic web series. You know what I mean? Where either they're acted out or they're told and people, you know, maybe it's animation. I don't really know. You know what I mean? But that's,
Yeah.
I find them so interesting. I love them.
Man, it's good. It's good. And it's an easy thing to do, man. How hard is it just sit back and just enjoy stories the whole time? It's great.
Oh, I know. I know. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, you know, obviously people have been doing it for, you know, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You know what I mean? Like, think about sitting around with your grandparents or, you know, whatever. And it's just like yarns and stories all the time. And so it's funny that people sort of, you know, at times forget about it. You know what I mean? Like we go through these periods where people don't, you know, they sort of forget to tell the stories. It's bizarre. Because I also do like storytelling coaching, which is like a bizarre thing. And I do it a lot around climate change, actually. And so it's a lot of like, you know, like when I do it in the South Pacific, it's a lot of just talking to people to help them remember their stories or to remind them that those stories are like much older than the stories that, you know, that I've encountered in my existence. You know what I mean? It's kind of fascinating. I love it.
That's good.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. So I guess we've sort of covered everything, like who inspires you, what's your favorite sort of story. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I think my favorite kind of story is actually the one that just keeps escalating. You know, a kind of story where you think it's finished and then it just goes, no, wait, there's like heaps more to this. It's like I got like I think it's up on, I got it up on YouTube. But like I have a story from when I went to Colombia years ago, like it would have been early 20s, and I enjoyed the fine wares of Colombia and went for a walk through the jungle. And it's kind of this story where things get outrageous, we get lost, and like more and more this story just gets more and more dramatic. And it's like those kinds of stories where it's just everything escalates are the ones I love. Kind of ones where you just go, holy shit. Yeah, that's my favorite. And then, yeah.
I know. And then it's, you know, if we want to talk like in the short film sort of genre, you know, my friend Anthony is like, you know, you should always end your short film like at the end of Act 1. You know what I mean? With that sort of cliffhanger, so that the audience like has to walk out and they're like, what happened next? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Leave them with a hook. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, I guess that's part of the reason why I do the Chunder Chat, you know, thing as well, is just sort of like check back in and be like, so, you know, what's happened since then? Like what's, you know, is there more to the story, you know?
Have you gotten many like crazy follow-ups? Like, I wish we were
Uh,
more interested, but
I mean, not really. It's been because it's been this COVID-19 time, so like a lot of it's just been like sort of like, and then it was put on hold.
you know what's
You know
really
what I mean?
interesting, right? Then, like, because with comedy gigs, kind of like stand-up comedy coming back, it's like a lot of chats I've been having with comedians that are like, oh man, there's going to be so much like COVID material being done and rah rah, which it's like obviously that's the thing everyone's been living last little while. But I'm fascinated to see. Like I'm probably like I haven't really been writing. I'll be honest, I've been lazy as hell. But I'm keen to go and watch a lot of gigs because I honestly think that everyone living in the moment's like, man, nothing's happening. I got nothing to talk about, rah rah. But then when you get that hindsight of like a couple of weeks later when it's all a little bit more back to normal, I feel like there's going to be a lot of pretty outrageous stories that people have from being, locked in the cabin for 3 months, especially the people that took it super like hyped. You know what I mean? Like I live in Balimba. Fuck all people around here really like, you know what this COVID lockdown was? It was more like a fitness like regime for a lot of these people. I didn't realize how many people around my neighborhood owned dogs. I walk my dog every day. And then as soon as the COVID thing happened, all of a sudden everyone had dogs, like walking them everywhere. I was like, man, this is a 3 month lockdown. This is like the biggest loser for everyone in this neighborhood. It's like not even enough room on the footpath. It's crazy. But I reckon there's going to be a lot of like mad stories that people won't even realize they've got right now. That are like, like I have people that do a story for my podcast. I'm sure it's the same for you. Like they'll do a story, and then afterwards they'll be like, "Oh, I just remembered like this thing. And, oh, I just remembered this mad thing that I've got to tell you about." So a lot of ones I've recorded, I'm not even going to put up because that person's just like so keen on this other story. I'm like, well, you come back and we'll record that one instead. Because it's like you need the spark, I feel. Like as soon as you start, you're like, oh, hang on, I know exactly like what's going to kill it in. And there are going to be heaps of weird corona stories that'll come out. That'll be of left field. You won't even
Or
realize.
or stories that are even inspired. But I was sitting at dinner with my son the other day, and I started to tell him I was in a really bad bus accident when I was 21. Like, I mean,
A bus
like,
accident.
yeah, we're talking like nobody should have survived, but somehow we all did. Sort of bus accident. Um, it was a bunch of dancers. We were doing a tour of a Broadway musical in Germany, and we got in an accident on the Autobahn, and we rolled 3 times down a hill, and it killed the 4 people that the bus hit. And I was like, I've never told this story on the Story Chunder.
Yeah.
How bizarre, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
like I had an out of body experience. Like my memory of the accident is watching it from above.
That's wild.
And I don't remember it ending. Like like anyway. Well, I'll tell it to you. Maybe I'll tell it to you for good yarns because it was a pretty outrageous story. Like, but I don't know. I had locked it away somewhere, back here, and then I've had time to think, and all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, there's that story.
You know what? It's like a mate of mine always, my mate Peter James is a really good comic and actor. He basically does bloody everything. He's so talented. But he lives up in far north, and he's a real. He really loves like Stuart Goldsmith and stuff. I think is his name, like a comedian that does like a lot of chats with comics and stuff on his podcast. And he has this quote written on his wall, and he's like, "Comedians aren't competing with each other. It's all of us together against." I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's like we're all in competition against silence. And it's like I think like in a way you're like that story is popping into your mind. Is like when there's silence, it's like you want to fill it with something. You know what I mean? And then you'll just remember a story or something that you wouldn't have even thought twice of, purely because you don't want that silence to keep existing. Like,
I know. It's crazy. And, and I challenge the storytellers on Story Chunder, with like a theme every week. And I'm like, or you can just tell whatever you want to tell. But again, sometimes that theme sort of makes you go, oh. And I was thinking, because this week, tonight we're doing one at 7 o'clock, and it's Hot Enough for You, which is, I'll explain tonight why that's that. And so then I was thinking about the cyclone, in Fiji. And I was like, oh, that could have to do with Hot Enough for You, because the cyclone wouldn't have happened if the temperature of the ocean hadn't been so high at that particular time. You know what I mean? It's like, Yeah, it's crazy, man. But
Well, when I saw that theme, and I immediately thought of a story as well, because I was like, oh, hot enough boy out. And I was like, Darwin. Like, I lived in Darwin for a few years. And while I was, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but while I was in Darwin, I did that to my wrist.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, the way I did that would be the story that I'd be able to tell. Because again, it was like I did an injury, and then the sequence of unfortunate events that happened after. Like,
Yeah.
but sometimes you need a pump band. I might have to steal that for my podcast. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, that's all right. No, well, I'll share. I mean, I stole everything that I do from John. So, you know, like, paying it forward. All right, cool. So is there anything else that you want to tell us about? Anything else that you have coming up? Or just listen to good yarns?
Yeah, go and check out, like, please do go and check out my podcast, Good Yarns. Eps come out every Tuesday with a new storyteller, but I'm going to start dropping a few little extra live audios of, like, some storytelling bits that I've done on stage. And then, 7th to the 11th of July, keep an eye out with Good Chat Comedy, because there's going to be some live shows popping up, and one of them will be a live storytelling show for that. So you should come along. Are you going to come?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, totally. That'll be great. I'll let everyone know from the Story Chunder know we'll all come.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, man. That's all I got going on.
We'll be like, Shad. We'll throw our pictures at you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, that hasn't happened at the show yet, so please do. Washed.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Shad Wicka, for coming on Chunder Chat and telling us a little bit more about yourself and what makes you who you are and the storyteller you are. And definitely check out Good Yarns. I'll play like an ad for it at the end of when this becomes a podcast as well, and I'll share it on our social media. And do you have social media to look at for that program, or just for you in general?
Yeah, just do my Insta at the moment, because it's only just launched, so I'm just going to wait. But if you have a story that you want to maybe share on my potty, you can hit me up on Instagram, or you can go to shadwicka.com, and there's like a little form thing there with like one of the episodes, so you can hear what it's kind of like. But yeah, other than that, that's it.
Okay, doke. Well, it was great to see you, mates. And like I said, when this becomes a podcast, the next thing you're going to hear is your story. So
awesome, man. Keep doing this. It's awesome.
All right, man.
See you, bro.
Take care.